Jesse.
Hey, man.
Oh, hey, hold on. I gotta swap my earphones.
Let's see.
All right.
I should be much better at this than since I've been doing. I just got off of a Senate meeting right before this. So,
dude, it's okay. I suck at podcasting sometimes too.
It's good to see you, man. How are you?
Dude, it's always good to see you, man. It's been too long. Remember how we kind of thought we'd never get to podcast again or something for a minute? I feel like,
yeah,
but here we are.
And then the world ended and everything's different.
Silver linings, man.
Yeah, for sure, buddy. Are you in your podcasting dungeon there?
I'm home at the studio, but I'm like, man, I'm super packed up in here. About all I have left in here is the table and what you see behind me.
Okay.
So I've been, the new gym has a huge studio space that I built into it.
Where's the new gym at?
Okay. You remember, so right by Tech, there's the La Huertas, the Mexican restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were sitting at the stoplight and La Huertas was on your left, so like you're turning to go towards Dover, you would actually go across Highway 7. You would go across it, like going towards Tina's Gymnastics, and it's going back to Basics Fitness Center.
Okay.
Right? So if you complete the block around by Tina's, like New Life Church, that big church used to be like.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Nice, yeah. A lot of people know all the landmarks, but never knew there was a fitness center back in there. And then I'm like, did we buy a good location?
Is business okay? Are you guys back to normal, or?
It's good. Business is good. We're fine. So like financially, we're fine. We definitely do not need to get shut down again. And the government needs to give us more money than they gave us last time if they shut us down again.
Yeah.
But and we're not back to normal though. Like financially, we're fine. Like I just had to tell everybody that, so there's like not any paranoia. But like the kids classes, they're kind of weird right now. Like we're doing kids classes twice a day, every day, and there's a lot of kids coming in. We lost not like a significant number of memberships, but quite a few. And the people are starting to trickle back in that pause their membership more, and we're getting new signups. That's a big deal. Because like think about like from March until a couple weeks ago, we enrolled no new members.
Yeah. Well, and then Arkansas, Northwest Arkansas is blowing up right now with cases, and it's pretty crazy. Some states are having a hard time. It seems like Arkansas might be one of them.
Yeah, I saw some crazy projected numbers this morning that they were like saying that maybe I don't remember what our state numbers are now, but they were saying we could have 150,000 cases by October or something like that. Let's see if I can get a COVID stat here.
Well, we're in good shape where we're at right now. The town just north of us was the hot spot of the Midwest for a little while, but we're in our, I think.
How long's it been flattened like that for you guys, the curve?
So I think we've been on 3 weeks where it's been, I think for 2 weeks prior to that, they were looking at like 20% drop and then 15% drop. And then we're getting like maybe one new case a day. There's only one person in our local hospital that has it. So we're in good shape.
What do you think? So like, why are you guys able to stop it like that? What do you think?
So we never shut down, but what our governor did is that he handled it county to county, and so we had like out west in counties where there still are no cases, just because there's open spaces and not a lot of people, and then north of us where it's Grand Island is right on I-80. That's where the big blow up was. And it's also one of the meatpacking hubs of the Midwest. And so there was, a lot of cases there that were for transportation and meatpacking. But, it's just, we're not dealing with big population centers, small towns.
Have you talked with your parents still in Northwest Arkansas?
Yeah, they are.
What have they said about things up there? I mean, I've talked a little bit. Like Northwest Arkansas wasn't as bad. Like I went up there a couple weeks ago for like a Friday morning. I just went to my friend Nate's gym. That's it. Like didn't go any other place while I was there. But then like after I left, it's like when the cases really started. What have they said about it?
So I haven't really. I know that they're hunkering down. Because they're both in their 70s, and have some minor underlying health issues. And so my two brothers, one of them lives in Fayetteville, and then he's the principal at a junior high, and then the other one lives in Springdale and works in Fayetteville. And they're just people are being not super responsible. I think that when everything opened back up, everybody just flooded to what was open, and then and I think also the increased testing probably had something to do with that too. Mm-hmm. But I mean, we went 8 weeks here without going to the store. We didn't go anywhere, which, that was just, it's nuts. And we kind of go out a little bit.
Did you do like a grocery delivery?
Yeah,
or
we
what'd
did
you
grocery,
do?
Basically Walmart orders, and then just go pick them up, not contact anybody. And then we did the whole like disinfecting all the groceries and, all the stuff. We were super careful. So it seems pretty good. We're one of the counties. So the rest of the state's going to go to phase 3 opening, June 22nd. Our county and the one north of us and another one in the state, we're going to go to phase 2 after that. And so we're a little bit slower, but they're kind of handling it on a case by case basis. But I mean, places like Omaha and Lincoln never really blew up.
Interesting.
And they had a lot of cases, but it's been crazy, man. I pretty much from the time I left the country till when I got back and went into quarantine for 14 days. And then it hasn't been normal since.
Yeah, which I want to talk about all that for sure. So, hey, what's your principal brother say though, real quick, about like schools reopening? Have you talked to him about that?
Right now it seems like they're in like a wait and see holding pattern. But I mean, they're I think they're planning to follow CDC guidelines. I don't know. He's
what are your thoughts on the CDC guidelines? Are you guys doing the same thing there? I mean, just you having teenagers like ours, like Brianne Davis, our state senator, she comes to the gym. Like she shared a video, and there's a lot of people that I've just seen, right, that are hating on that CDC. Like because of their kids going back to school under those conditions.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough, man. My older kids, I insist on them wearing masks everywhere they go, because we kind of just got to a place where you gotta, for a long time you're kind of figuring out, well, we're just gonna hunker down until it's normal, and then you get 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks we're into this thing. You got to just kind of figure out what the new normal is. And so the new normal is, I heard one of my colleagues use this kind of analogy. It's like sex education. Like it's never going to be 100% safe, but if you teach people to do it safely, you can keep disease and you can keep pregnancy rates pretty low. And I think that's kind of the attitude that we've got to take with this too.
Yeah, that is doing things you can do to mitigate the risk, right?
That's about it, man.
Only what else are you going to do while there's no 100%, which I mean where there won't be, but no really tested, clinically proven, this works a lot of the time, medication or vaccine. I mean, there's some treatments out there, but there's still a lot of unknowns. So
yeah, as far as, my philosophy has been, follow the guidelines of the scientists. And, wearing masks, washing hands, avoiding crowds of people, as much for my safety as it is for the safety of other people that I'm around, and then I try to, frequent those places that are also respectful of those. There's a store here that requires everybody to wear masks when they go in. It's a much better kind of shopping experience than going to Walmart that doesn't. Where they have everything, it's recommended, and they have all of everything mapped out in the aisles, but nobody follows those rules and they're not enforcing them.
Yeah.
And so it's, it's stressful.
I think those large box corporations should have done that from the get-go.
I do
right?
too.
They should have
Some
required
of
it
them
from
did. Some of them did. The one that's in town is kind of a Midwestern kind of. It's like a Lowe's, but it's like Lowe's that also has. It's called Menards.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, so they have like all kinds. They have groceries and other stuff too. But it's you got to come in. If you want to come in the store, you got to wear a mask. If you don't have a mask, we'll sell you one for 89 cents. Which I think that's I think a good way to go. And we'll keep following the CDC guidelines because that's what we're using. That's where kind of the best information is coming from. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and also it's something that we're learning as we go.
Are you talking about the busloads of Antifa protesters?
Oh my gosh, I can't even get me started on all the craziness.
Oh, dude. Oh, anyway, yeah.
Yeah, or have you heard about the what is it, the Boogaloo ones, the people that are on the other side of this? Yeah. Man, I just learned the other day about this, 7 blocks in Seattle that has been
Chaz.
It's insane. I've not ever lived through a period of time that's like this.
Hey, what do you remember? Have you ever watched Family Guy?
Yeah.
It's like the Pretoria episode.
It is, man. People are acting insane. And for good and for bad, but it's we're planning. So
you, with your background, I mean, I'm sure you have some opinions on at least some of this, right?
Well, you know what? Honestly, man, I have been just reacting to things like everybody else, and things that keep coming up almost so fast that I can't respond to it in a meaningful way. Without giving it some thought. I mean, I'm honestly, for a long time, I was just like, okay, let's get back into the country. Okay, let's get through 14 days of quarantine. All right, let's get through the next 2 months without any kind of guarantee about your employment. Let's, apply for a bunch of jobs to see if you could get something just in case. And then it turned into, as soon as something gets worked out, there's something new that pops up. And so I'm just kind of responding like everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, do you see anything like, okay, so like we've been talking about this, like what's going on right now is a lot like 1968, right?
It's pretty crazy.
In my world, it is like, I mean, from when Martin Luther King assassinated, you get protests, riots, looting that last all the way through the election, also an election year. Mm-hmm. So like, just, like that's kind of what I was saying is like, can you compare this to anything else? Is this like I
don't know. I mean, there are some similarities, but I mean, you throw in the whole COVID-19 thing and it is, it's a new ball game for everybody and everybody's just kind of responding to it. Well, at least that's what I'm doing. I'm just responding to it and kind of broken everything down on the base level of, focus on what's going on in my house with my family. I mean, quarantining with 3 teenagers is, it's a challenge, but we're making it by hook or by crook, man.
Yeah. Well, that's, we'll tell, after the podcast, tell everyone I said hello, Cora.
I will definitely do that, man.
We definitely miss you guys.
Yeah. We miss it too. I know, the kids are, the kids were definitely, I think that they were at a place where they needed a break because they were kind of going hard for 3 years. But then, both of them have kind of explored and expressed an interest in doing it, especially Hayden again. But there's just not really any places that are within, Lincoln has some good schools. But I haven't been impressed with anything that's close to here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is a testament to you and Cora and the bar that you guys set. So.
Well, thanks. I really did enjoy working with him, man, especially not like I'm saying I enjoyed one more than the other, but Hayden, super aggressive. I could like when you said that she had mentioned it, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. She needs to get some of that aggression out.
Yeah. And she's still, she does cross country pretty hardcore.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I've been running a lot.
Man, I wish I could run a lot again. My knees are they're just the 4 knee surgeries and not a lot of cartilage. And so I've been, my routine since I got out of quarantine was just, I get up every morning and I go for a walk, and I walk like an hour and a half. So it's like 3 or 4 miles.
What do you do while you walk? Do you listen to books?
I listen to podcasts, man. I just put on my headphones and just kind of walk around. That started off as just like 20 or 30-minute walks, and then it's kind of increased. And then I've got a gym set up in my garage because I lost my primary cardio workout, which was swimming, when they shut the pools down. And then
check this out, dude. The aquatic center has been back open for weeks. Dude, like when they open back up, like all of the other gyms that were in town, ours included, they're like, you better not be using your showers. And I'm like, you got the pool open, people. Yeah. Like I wasn't even planning on the showers thing. Like I get that, but you have the pool open. There's a contradiction here.
Yeah, they're keeping our pool closed here throughout the summer. They also canceled all the 4th of July stuff, so no parade, no fireworks. So they're being pretty cautious. But yeah, so I set up. I've got a 100-pound heavy bag hanging from my rafters in my garage, and I've got a lot of elastic cables and some kettlebells and some med balls, and I can do pretty much jump rope and do pretty much everything. I got a battle rope.
Man, I want to get a row machine. That's one thing I want to get that I don't have, that I love doing.
The one piece of equipment that I wish I had is I wish I had an Aerodyne bike.
Yeah. That's eventually I will get all that. I don't know if we're going to build a garage or what. That's something we talked quite a bit about. Us doing like a 3-car garage with like the third space, having all of the stuff you just mentioned and a row machine. Mm-hmm. But we have an elliptical. But I pay St. Mary's. St. Mary's is not open back. Right? Yeah, and they say they're going to. Rumor was that they weren't, but that was where I was exercising every day. Like literally, I would take usually one day a week off, and I would work out on the weekends too. Mm-hmm. But they've been closed. Like my routine's out the window. But we say $60 a month, and I'm like, well, let's say I keep this membership for 20 years, right? Like that pays for my whole damn garage and a sauna and everything I want to put in it. Honestly, it does.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been mostly just trying to stay active doing that. I like going out and, I usually do like a 3-minute warm up with some jump ropes, and I'll do 3 minutes on the heavy bag and then go back to 3-minute on jump ropes and do that for like 3 rounds, and then do some strength stuff. And that's pretty good. I do that maybe a couple times a week, and try to walk every day. And, you do what you can do. Go shoot some baskets with Carson. But
do you bike? I just got a new bike. I've been biking.
Yeah, so I got a mountain bike, and it's so flat here. So about 3 weeks ago, it's flat, and it's also windy, and it's cornfields. And so I was like, I'm going to go ride on some of the dirt roads that are around here. So I went out about 30 minutes, and I looked at my phone. I was like, oh, I'm 7.5 miles away from town. So I better, that was pretty easy. I better head back. So what I hadn't realized was that I had like a 20, 25 mile per hour tailwind that was pushing me. And so when I turned around and had to pedal back, oh my God, man, it took me an hour to get back. I was so tired to get through that 14 miles, because that last 7 miles back was like into a headwind with no wind breaks, because it's just these empty fields.
Yeah.
And I did not want to have to call my wife to come pick me up.
Oh man. Yeah. I've been having a little routine where most mornings, if I'm at the gym, I will go to the gym and get my bike. I've been keeping my bike in the new studio, and I'll ride it. Like I drove down by the wall, hit Bonadilla, then popped out on Parkway, went down Parkway into Midtown. So like I take these different routes to go get my morning coffee. But it's been I got another urban bike. I had one that got stolen, but it's just a Trek. I wanted a KHS, but everybody's been buying bikes like crazy. But man, the other day it was windy and there was a little bit of a cold front, and I was pedaling into wind, probably not as extreme as you're talking about, but I got right out of the gym parking lot, and I was like, no, I think I'm just going to drive today. Turned around.
Yeah, I mean, there's just, when you're out, you got to get back. So there's nothing for it. Nothing for it at all. But yeah, it's, so I tried, when I was in Ireland, I went surfing.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's not something you would think of doing in Ireland, I guess, right?
So Ireland, the west coast of Ireland is like the surf capital of Europe.
Wow.
So we were in a place called Bundoran, and it was so cold. We had to wear full wetsuits, but also gloves, and then booties, and then head coverings. And I'm not in terrible shape, but it whipped my butt a little bit. It was
Is that the first
rough.
time you've ever surfed?
It's the first time I've surfed in like 20 years. I've surfed on the West Coast out in California, and we were surfing on big fat longboards. I was able to get up one time, and then another half time, and then after that, I was mostly just videoing the students surfing.
Well, why did you guys go there?
So we had a study abroad class, and that was one of the locations. So I'd never been there, and we went. We took about 30 students. It was me and another faculty member, but that faculty member ended up having to. We had a student lose their passport in the Chicago airport, and so she had to fly back home with her. So it was me and the students in a country that I'd never been to. Right in the middle of a global pandemic. So
what date were you guys there? So like I was charting, like I felt like while you were gone is when things really started to accelerate on.
It did. So we left, I think it was March 2nd.
Yeah.
And then we flew from Nebraska to Chicago, and then got on a direct flight from Chicago to Ireland. And then interesting, like we didn't spend a whole lot of time over the Atlantic Ocean because when you fly, we flew up into Canada, and then we followed Greenland and Iceland, and then over, because it follows the kind of curvature of the Earth. But it was only a 6-hour flight from Chicago to Ireland. I was kind of shocked.
Yeah, that's actually not that's not bad at all.
That's not bad at all. I'm not a big fan of flying, but that was pretty chill. And then we got there, and we arrived in Dublin. And then we bussed like 2.5 hours to the other side of the country. And then we based out of this town called Bundoran, and we just did day trips. The mornings were spent like doing lectures. We had a group that was facilitating it, Study Abroad Ireland. And then we go and visit the things that they talked about. And we saw some pretty cool stuff, man. We went to a Gaelic football match. It was pretty awesome. Did some surfing. We went up and saw some of those really cool cliffs like you see in the Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And then we went up to, we actually went into Northern Ireland to Derry, where the massacre that was kind of immortalized in that U2 song, New Year's Day, or Bloody Sunday, excuse me. And we went to the museum, and we kind of walked the footsteps of where that was. And that was really interesting and compelling because that was less than 20 years ago, so it was fun. It was a lot of fun. And then, with about 3 days left on our trip, we started to see things blow up, and the president started talking about closing borders, and so yeah,
he's all about that, man.
Yeah, it's isolationism at its best.
Hey, let me. I thought you would find this humorous. I'm going to screen share something real quick. Let's see. Boom. It's not this. We don't want to see that. Hold on. New share. Just a second. So there's somebody sent me a super funny article, right? Trump quote. Can you see this? Is it screen sharing?
Takes credit for the holiday.
Yeah. Have you read this yet?
I have not read it yet. This is in USA Today.
Yes. I made Juneteenth very, very famous. Okay. He takes credit for the holiday, celebrating the emancipation.
It's pretty crazy. I never would have guessed that the kind of things that get said and that get publicized, and sometimes very, more reputable sites, and just the kind of contradictory nature of all of it. It's so hard to get good information. There's so much information.
Yeah, no, it really is.
Are you playing?
What's that?
What are you playing? You playing the documentary?
Yeah. I mean, we could just play this in the background for a minute. I figured you could provide some commentary. We are watching Natty Parks, a documentary film by Dr. Jesse Weiss. But yeah, I figured we could do some commentary on this. Like, I have never watched the whole thing, so I figured like before you'd sent it to me, and I'd watch part of it.
Well, it's an hour and 10 minutes long, so it takes
a
little bit of time. I did another one for this trip to Ireland too.
So that's what I was going to ask. That's what got me thinking to pull this up. So
it was mostly kind of video and photographs, and I just kind of set it to music. I couldn't put it on YouTube because I used a lot of copyright protected songs. So I did a lot of the soundtrack. I did it was Irish artists that cover like popular music.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah,
young Jesse.
Young Jesse, yeah, man. You look at my beard nowadays, and it's like I'm definitely aging right before my eyes. So these are all photographs of family trips and trips with the class, and because I taught this class. I was supposed to teach this class again in August, but the school had to suspend all travel classes for the year because of what's going on with COVID-19.
Was that part of like your why? I mean, I know when you got hired there, you had kind of some. You're kind of being brought in to kind of do like.
Yeah, so that was one of the reasons why I kind of made the transition, was the emphasis that they placed on experiential education and travel. It's part of the general ed curriculum here. So that was, I got to teach a class to do the one in Ireland, and I was going to do another one. We'd do the national parks trip again. But yeah, that's all that stuff is up in the air and on hold for right now, at least for the next year, until we can figure out what's going on. But there's nothing I like better than taking students to some of these amazing places. Those are where you get like the aha moments, and you get the hands-on kind of. It's one thing to study about something in a classroom. That's another thing entirely to go and visit it and do it and experiencing it. And so this documentary was actually the third time I taught the class, and a lot of these pictures were the other two times that were associated with the class that I had taught as part
what
of
is and what is the actual title of the class? Like,
it was called National Parks. It was part of the environmental studies program at University of the Ozarks. And we spent the semester studying the kind of the history of the parks and their policies and the way that they're managing their land. And then we took like a 2-week road trip and visited them, the same parks.
What's your middle name, Jesse?
It's Timothy.
Timothy. Okay. Timothy. Yes.
Timothy. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so this was, we went to all of these, and I just basically filmed it all on my iPhone, and then edited on iMovie, and, which kind of, it's kind of like just a hobby of mine at this point. We, I don't know if you probably saw the little web series that my oldest daughter and I were doing.
I was going to ask you about that. Like,
we kind of put that on hold because it was a little light. It was pretty light. And then we were going to do another one. And then everything got real serious in society. And so we kind of took a break, kind of put a pause. But we want to get back to that. And the whole premise of that is just looking at movies from each of our generations. So I'm Generation X and she's Generation Z.
That's a cool premise. That's why I was going to remark on it, because I was like, this could be a big show, maybe, right? Like, you're gonna.
Well, yeah. So the first one we did was Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and so that was one I recommended from Gen X for her. And she's really the star of it, because it's all about her reactions and me basically being, back in my day, get off my lawn. But so the next one is that she'll recommend a movie. We actually did a movie recommend that we started to film, but it was, I don't know if you've seen 5 Feet Apart.
No, I haven't.
Yeah. So don't. It's about teenagers that have, God, what do they have? They have some kind of lung disease, and they can't be within however many feet apart, and then they can't be around each other. And so it's this love story. And it was just stinking sad. And so we decided to not do that one. I think the one that she's going to do next for Generation Z that I'm going to watch, have you seen a show called Good Boys? It's a comedy about like 13, 14-year-old boys.
I know. I haven't seen that one either. I suck.
So yeah. she's recommending stuff from her generation, and I recommend stuff from my generation, and then we kind of respond to it.
But Ferris Bueller's Day Off is great.
She thought it was good, man. So I think that I'm not sure what the next one will be that I recommend, but it'll be pretty good once we get back at it. We just kind of took a pause, and I think all your favorite podcasts kind of took a pause unless they were directly addressing what was going on in the world. And I think that neither one of us wanted to do that. That's not really the I guess the tone of what we're doing there. So I don't know. We'll see how it is. Like 15-minute snippets of it, and I kind of edited it together again, and we recorded using Zoom, kind of similar to what you're doing here. But we went to back to this. So this was the first one that we went to, Carlsbad Caverns, and this was the first park that I'd been to that was a cave system. Pretty cool. So I definitely recommend it. Highly recommend it. If I read an article or something that I tagged you in, and you were like, "Yep, that's the one." Yeah, it's you hike into it, and what they say is the hike in and out is like walking up and down the Empire State Building. It's that much elevation change. So
wow.
And it would all be very different. I mean, it was packed out then. I mean, I don't even know what that looks like now moving forward in a COVID-19 world.
Yeah, for real. Is this like an amphitheater? Do they do concerts and stuff there too?
It's I don't think that they do concerts. They have an amphitheater where I think they have bats that come in and out.
Oh, interesting.
But then there's the trails that go down it.
Wow, look at all those people.
Yeah, it was a lot of people, man. And they have an elevator that goes up and down, and we got down to the bottom, and we had she's 6 now, but she was 4 then. My daughter, my wife just kind of waited for 3.5 hours to take the elevator back up.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy, man. Pretty crazy.
That is so that's got to be wild walking that far down into the earth, right?
Yeah. I mean, when, you get this, and the video doesn't do it justice either. It's just amazing geological features, amazing amazing and really interesting formations, and really cool stuff. So wow. I mean, you can see some of that. Yeah. And it's just how big it is insane.
Wow, that is cool, dude. That the stalactites, that what that's called? I want to look at that again.
Well, those are they're curtains, and then you have different features that are kind of, and I'm not a geologist, so I don't know.
Dude, that looks like a lion's mane mushroom. I know that's a weird thing to compare it to, but right there at the top.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow, that is super interesting.
And I think that's just formed by the leaching of minerals through the ground. And again, I'm speaking completely out of turn on that. I'm not. I am no way.
Well, you got to describe it some way for the listeners of the audio.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't. They have different parts, and it's an ongoing site, so they're constantly studying these features and these formations. And it's dark down there, but they have some things that are lit up. And the best part of the doing this is the students talking about it, and kind of their
stuff I'm fast forwarding through.
But we're not listening to their voices or anything right now. But just to see, for them to see these things. And I was really low key on Carlsbad Caverns, but it turned out to be probably one of my favorite spots.
Nice. Wow.
But it gets at the importance of preservation, and you can see that, and you can't really see the scale of that, but it's huge. I mean, it's you could put a football stadium in there. It's that big.
Yeah. Is that and that's not the first time you had been to Carlsbad, right?
I'd never been to Carlsbad before. Okay. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, cool little map. Wow.
Yeah, that was so that's, you hike in it, and then they have all the things that are inside of it. So but yeah, it's that was our first stop, and then we went to Guadalupe Mountains, which is just about 45 minutes down the road in New Mexico, or back into Texas.
Yeah.
And that's where I accidentally sprayed my family with bear mace.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yes. Okay, but
Yeah.
also, didn't you guys? So I told somebody this came up the other day. I don't remember why, but I was like, "Yeah, so this happened to my friend." Didn't you guys get caught out in a storm?
We did. That was in Arches. We were hiking up to Delicate Arch, and and that's later on in the probably it's toward the end of this, but yeah, we were hiking up to the Delicate Arch, which is the big the one you see on the license plate and the one that's all over everything. And my family and I just went back there and spent the week of Christmas in Moab, Utah, and we hiked the Delicate Arch on Christmas morning. But we were hiking up there, and it was about 8 o'clock in the morning, and we got up there, and a big thunderstorm moved in on top of us, and we got pelted with hail, and we're on slick rock, and there's not a lot there, so there's the bear mace I sprayed my family with on accident.
Oh, man.
And it was thunder and lightning. It was pretty scary, man. It was probably the most dangerous thing that happened to us, and all you can do is just hike back. We got back, and we're soaking wet, but
what did you do? So this came up, I don't remember why, but how did you take shelter? I think that's what got us on to something had come up about what to do if you get. Did you just like hunker down against
there was no shelter, man. There was no shelter there because you're in the desert, and you just need to remove yourself from that situation, right? So we could have taken shelter, but the place where we could have taken shelter was my feet. I got the chemical burns. So we could have taken shelter, but where we took shelter, where we could have taken shelter, it was in a wash, so it was a place where there could be flash flooding.
Yeah.
And so it would have been more dangerous for us to try to take shelter in an area that could have been washed out with flash flooding than it was for us just to hike back down and try to get back to our vehicles. There was some brush or whatever that we could have hidden behind, but generally speaking, we just got in the line and we hiked down, and we had to cross a couple areas that were already starting to fill up with flash flooding. So it was me, and I had 3 of my kids. Luckily, my wife and the youngest were back at the where we were staying, and I had all the students and another faculty, and it was,
Is that a faculty? Is he a teacher?
Yeah, that's Dr. Warren Sconyers. He's a biology professor at the University of the Ozarks. So he's an entomologist. He's really into insects.
Neat.
Yeah.
Was he doing stuff on this trip, like studying, like documenting, collecting?
Actually, some of the students were taking one of his bio classes, and they were documenting and collecting samples, not in the parks because that's illegal, but they used an app where they could kind of take samples virtually. And they actually found a pretty rare fly in Zion National Park. That was in the Virgin River, and it's one of the, I guess, a species of insect that indicates that the ecosystem is pretty healthy.
Yeah.
So,
man, that's interesting. Those look like almost like stairs or.
They do. So that's in the Guadalupe Mountains, and that's just erosion, eroding out.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. So it was super windy there. We were going to climb up to this peak, but it was. Like there were probably 40, 45 mile per hour winds. You can see the wind blowing through there. You can kind of see, the students.
I like his dance. Yeah.
Yeah, he did that dance throughout the entire trip.
Did your kids teach it to him?
I did not know that. He did it with my kids at one point.
Yeah, that's.
So they were into it, and then we drove over to Arizona to Saguaro National Park, which is right outside of Tucson. It was going to be a drive through. We just drove through it. But the size of the cacti was just incredible. Like, there's a picture in here of 2 of my students that have their arms wrapped around it, and they're, it's a 40, 50-foot cactus.
Whoa, really?
They're huge, man. It's just absolutely gigantic. Saguaro cacti, and they have, I don't know how many different species. And you can see them in the background. There's.
That's fun.
So that was the dance of the trip. So, but it was pretty impressive. Very cool. Yeah. So this is a little montage of him doing the dance at all the places. But yeah, the cactus, it was pretty amazing. There's some amazing places in Arizona because we drove basically from the Mexican border all the way to the top into Utah. I had never driven through that way before, and it was really amazing from, Saguaro to Grand Canyon all the way up through Zion in Utah, and it's an amazing drive if you can do it.
Yeah. I mean, I've driven through, I've never been to Utah. I've driven through all the way to California before and stopped a few places along the way, but didn't go see the Grand Canyon or anything super cool.
Yeah, there are some great places that aren't national parks too. Like I think the Antelope Mountains are in northern Arizona, and you can see all those slot canyons that you see in photographs.
What is that right there on that?
So those are petroglyphs. Those are the indigenous people made rock carvings because there was certain places that were sacred to them, and so they were all over the place, just on kind of rock piles or places where they'd been preserved. So we just did a bunch of hiking and camping and seeing cool stuff. It was a great group of students to travel with.
Do you see any vandalism at these places?
Man, you do. You do see some stuff. It's the biggest thing that you see in the cacti is people want to carve their names in them.
That's ridiculous.
But you'll see some things on rocks. When you're out in the desert, one of the things that's vandalism, and people don't think that it's vandalism, but it is that they'll pile up rocks to make cairns. You know what I'm talking about?
Like rock stacking, like on the creek?
Rock stacking, yeah.
Yeah.
And the function of doing that is in deserts where you don't have landmarks, those are supposed to be trail markers. And so when people put up their own stacks, not only does it mess up the trail markers, but it's a form of leaving a trace. And so one of the things that we did for this class was we trained them in Leave No Trace.
Wow.
That's the Grand Canyon. So one of my bucket lists is to hike rim to rim in the Grand Canyon.
How long does that take?
So that's a 24-mile hike. I think that we could do it in 4 days. The biggest thing is that you're hiking down. It's like a 7,000 foot decline from going to the north rim, and then you have to climb back up like 5,000 feet up the south rim. And so that's the biggest one. But it's a 24-mile hike, and it's definitely a bucket lister for me. Yeah. It'd be awesome to do that. I thought about doing that as a class. And the thing about the Grand Canyon too is it's an amazing. It's one of the heritage sites for open sky, so they don't have a lot of light pollution, and so the stars are incredible at night.
Yeah, that was insane looking. Oh, that's beautiful, man. How many times have you been to the Grand Canyon?
I've been to the Grand Canyon like 4 or 5 times. I've only hiked into it once, and I haven't hiked all the way across it. But it's incredible every time I go. I like the North Rim. The North Rim is about 2,000 feet higher, and it's more, it's more wooded than desert. But we got to get up that morning and see the sunrise.
Did you interview these students before, during, after?
Yeah, so I did all those. I interviewed them before, and then I interviewed them, kind of talked to them throughout, and then I interviewed them like 2 or 3 times afterwards.
Man, let me ask you this. Go ahead.
I was going to say I had hours and hours and hours of footage.
Yeah, I bet you had a lot to sort through. Like, so for example, do you see that guy standing right there? So there's been 2 times, well, really maybe 3. One was actually in an architectural structure, but that like you stand in something that's such a large scale, like maybe what you were saying, this the Carlsbad Canyon made you feel this way. But like I've been like hiking up to the Hollywood sign, right? Mm-hmm. It gets some really high peaks up there, and it didn't really bother me other than I was like, oh wow, it felt like at Hoover Dam. That's another, like you just look at it and you're like, I'm afraid, and I don't know why. That's so high up, and I'm not even close to the edge.
Yeah.
But it's just like a gargantuan scale thing. Would you like say that's what it's like looking at the Grand Canyon? Does it make you just feel like super small?
Absolutely. That's the biggest thing. And pictures can't capture it because at certain points, it's horizon to horizon. So as far as you can see to the left, and as far as you can see to the right, it's this gaping maw, right? So it's giant carved out canyon, and then
Is that snow?
That is snow, yeah.
Wow.
And then in some places you can't even see to the other side of it. It's one of those things that you can't fathom it unless you see it firsthand. And a lot of these places, you understand why they're important, why they're special, when you go see them. And pictures are great, but unless you can kind of really look at it and experience it, you don't really understand the scale.
Yeah.
So this is the drive from the Grand Canyon north into Utah. It's one of my favorite drives in the entire country, because you go into like this high desert and mesas, and then you really get a sense for, you've seen all those Westerns where they're riding through the desert and they have these kind of iconic looking monoliths.
Yeah.
This is where you can kind of experience that. And then you'll drive right here, you drive across the Colorado River, and it's this stark comparison of the Vermilion Cliffs with the red tint, and then the green water of the Colorado River. It's just incredible. They have this bridge you can walk across, and you can look over it, and it's probably 500 feet up.
Wow. Yeah, there is. I just listened to a book it's actually more like, it's the Southwest, Southern California. Have you ever listen to or read any Cormac McCarthy books?
Yeah, for sure.
Blood Meridian.
I've not read it. I've read some Cormac McCarthy stuff. I really like. So I was really a big fan of the Lonesome Dove.
Oh yeah, that's on my list. For that movie, bro, the first one with Robert Duvall.
That's one of my favorites, man. It's really good. Some of like Cormac McCarthy really does a good job of capturing the West. Also, do you know, have you ever heard of the Monkey Wrench Gang, Edward Abbey,
No.
Desert Solitaire? So he really does. He was more like focused on Utah. But the way that he described,
what's a good suggestion on that? I'll punch in my Audible here and see.
Desert Solitaire is really good. It just kind of describes the landscapes. But then he has another one's called, his best known one is the Monkey Wrench Gang, and it's about kind of environmentalist terrorism. But it focuses on kind of this area of the West and why it's important and why it should not be, we shouldn't be damming rivers. It focuses on the Colorado River, and specifically they're plotting to blow up the dam that created the Glen Canyon Reservoir in southern Utah. And it's all fiction, but a lot of people believe that he was, involved in some of this stuff.
Hey, can we get him to take down some of the Confederate monuments while he's at it?
Well, he's not alive anymore, so.
Yeah, okay. When he didn't blow up the dam?
No, the dams didn't get blown up, but
okay.
In the book, they do succeed.
I will check that out. That's thanks for the that's what, dude, I will tell you, like, this has become something I talk about with almost everybody I podcast with, is I get a book suggestion from them, and I've been turned on to some of the best books. One I'm listening to now is called, I made a Civil War joke a second ago, How the South Won the War, but like you could kind of see North behind it, but it's all about the lost cause. We're starting tomorrow. We're doing a podcast over Gone with the Wind and Birth of a Nation.
Okay.
We're talking about the lost cause in cinema.
Yeah, it's really, the different kind of historical periods. My wife is really into like historical fiction, and she's likes to read a lot of the. And I was a history and social double major too, so I was more very interested in like the history of the frontier, and so kind of the Manifest Destiny, kind of pushing
the Turner thesis.
Westward. What's that?
The Turner thesis.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I really, I like the early frontier days. Like one of my favorite kind of historical figures is Daniel Boone. Also I read a really, really cool book about Kit Carson, who is, he was, after Daniel Boone, but Kit Carson was kind of one of the seminal explorers, and became a guide and a trapper, and he did a lot of things. So if you ever get a chance, I I can't remember. It's in my office.
Yeah, shoot it to me if you figure it out. Because I'd
sure.
be interested. But with history of the American West, the frontier and American West, I think was how the course, one of my favorite courses I ever had. And I interject a lot of that in, particularly like when I get to like getting onwards into Texas and the Mexican American War and beyond, like Civil War. That's where I get to intersperse a lot of my favorite topics with that.
Yeah, I liked everything kind of preceding the Civil War. Civil War is really interesting, but I was more of like kind of the Lewis and Clark and the discovery of the world, the discovery of the continent, and making the way to the Pacific Ocean, and those are the parts that were really, really interesting to me, because it's I've done that drive. You drive from East Coast to West Coast, and I can just like in my mind's eye, I can imagine like, people coming over the Rocky Mountains, and then they come across, the Great Salt Lake in Salt Lake City, and they think they're at the ocean, that whole kind of like, wow, you mean I've got like thousands of miles left to get to
oh my gosh,
San Francisco, or, to get to, and there's another whole mountain range, the Sierra Nevadas. So yeah, that's, or, riding through the desert and then all of a sudden coming up on the Grand Canyon, like, seeing that for the first time, like, what do you do? There's not much you can do. And it really, it is the whole kind of, that whole Western experience kind of, I think, puts people in place as far as the scope, and lets them know how small kind of a piece they are, and how temporary our time here is. So this is all stuff at Zion National Park here, which is also one of those places that lets you know kind of how small you really are in the grand scheme of things. As like the Grand Canyon, a river carved out this place too, over millions of years, created some of the most amazing stuff. So
yeah, man, one thing I'm fascinated with, like, that's kind of wrapped up in the middle of this stuff we're just talking about, is like the Rocky Mountain fur trade, and like that era. There's a book, and I can't remember the name of the author. I'll tell you a Daniel Boone biography that's really good. John McFarriger. Have you read that one?
I have read that. Yeah.
Yeah. So like that, we use that in the frontier class, and we had several books for that class. So I can't remember the name of the author of Wild and Perilous, but they tell this story about, these trappers coming up on these Blackfeet Native Americans, and like them, like there's a couple of movies that have ripped off this primary source, but they like kill all the dude, like they basically seize their canoes, kill his buddies, take all his clothes off, and they're like, start running. Right. So like that's been I think in Jeremiah Johnson and Mountain Men are two.
I like both of those movies. I know from, I think if I remember correctly though, both of those like depict like the lone mountain man, which was really, that was not the norm. Like there were small groups of them that would go together because that was really dangerous, number one, to be by yourself, and then number two, the ones that went off by themselves, like your brain does weird things when you're not around other people, and so they were a little crazy. But yeah, the Mountain Man. I used to live in a place called Chadron, Nebraska, which is just at the foot of the Black Hills, and every year they would have the fur trade days. And in the fur trade days, it was supposed to kind of memorialize and mimic the fur rendezvous that they would have every spring. So it was really cool.
Tell me about this real quick. What is that?
So this is Bryce Canyon. This is in Utah. So Bryce Canyon is probably one of my favorite locations on this planet. You can kind of see into this. This is the view from the amphitheater, and you can actually hike into those. But those are they're called hoodoos. So they're spires that have been created by erosion. Basically, all of those used to be kind of what Zion looks like now. And then as erosion comes, they kind of erode those down, and there's these spires that stick up out of the ground, and it's beautiful colors of oranges, and there's some pink ones and white, and you can hike into those, and you can, we didn't hike into this because when we got there, it was really cold and snowing. So we just kind of took a look at it, but Bryce Canyon's one of my favorite.
Wow, look at that rock up there, dude.
Yeah, and those are all like, I mean, those are just, that's erosion. That's wind and rain.
No, I think that like a giant set that there or something.
You know what's funny? When I was in Ireland, like part of they have some really amazing features there too, geological features. But part of their culture and their history is like a history of giants, and so they like have like the giant's chair. And so part of their
Oh,
mythology
cool.
is that the island was settled by giants that died off eventually. And so it was really, really interesting. I also was interesting to find out that um, Vikings made their way to Ireland as well, and many of them liked Ireland so much that they actually, colonized. And so the people that are there are a lot of people that are Irish that are of like Nordic descent.
Is this where the Irish slaves come in? Because I've been looking for that connection, bro, and I haven't been able to find it anywhere. But I did find 40 primary sources that say that's a bullshit story.
Yeah, so a lot of the so we learned so much about Irish history that I just had no idea. But they primarily were of Gaelic descent, and then they had, at various times the Vikings came over, and then there were some English folks that came over. But it wasn't until actually Great Britain kind of started to expand their kingdom where you had uh, the real conflict between the pagan, quote unquote pagan or traditional
Yeah.
religion, and then you had Catholicism really merged really well with that. And so you had like, and you can see this in like Central America as well, where you see a combination. So we'll pause here. So you can see the black clouds. We're on this hike that we go on at Arches, and you can see that all of those are probably 30 miles to the north, right? So that's off, and it wasn't supposed to come and be on top of us, because if you were looking the other direction where the sun is shining, like, it's just blue skies.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're getting ready to hike up this hike. So you can see right there, I mean, it's blue skies, it's beautiful. And over there, it's just dark. And it wasn't supposed to turn, and the wind shifted, and it was just on top of us so fast.
Yeah, pretty nerve wracking, I'm sure, right?
It was crazy. But like I was saying, I think I chicken walked, but the whole, so the Catholic missionaries really merged well. And so you had a very strong Catholic tradition. So this was in the middle of that hailstorm.
Yeah, yeah. So see, that's what I had an image in my mind of those people hunkered down in that tree. I want to
Well,
see.
yeah, I mean, that was just a small bush, man. It was like that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
no coverage at all. But you can see, what's funny is you can see that rainbow.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like a full rainbow, and we're getting hammered, and there's like lightning firing off on both sides.
Did you hear the double rainbow guy died?
I did not.
Yeah.
That's sad.
Double rainbow. Oh man, and then the video circulated again like crazy. It was like just a few.
But it wasn't until the English started to colonize, and then the whole Protestant versus Catholic thing, and that's where a lot of the persecution kind of comes from. And then you have the potato famine.
Yeah, I talked about that in my U.S. History 1 class.
I mean, the British basically let them, millions of people die.
Yeah.
And it was, a lot of it was predicated on this theory called
4 million people, if I'm not mistaken.
So
people died and 4 million migrated.
They had a lot leave, and then they had. We visited a site there that was really interesting. It was a monument to 19 girls from this community were sent off to Australia to be brides of people that were there on the prison colony, and they were like 13, 14, 15-year-old girls. And their parents.
What's a prison colony in
Australia? So Australia was first established as a prison, right? So they're sending criminals from Britain to Australia, and they have these colonies that are being set up mostly by prison, mostly by men. And so as you kind of start to see the colonies emerging in Australia, they don't have any women. And so what they did was they basically took poor people and shipped them there to be brides.
Damn.
There's just so much stuff I had no idea,
Yeah.
And this is at Mesa Verde. This was really cool too. So these are the Anasazi cliff dwellings.
Yeah, awesome.
And what's amazing about this is that they don't really know why they left. Like they just abandoned everything, like perfectly good dwellings, and you can go and you can tour these things, and you can and literally it's literally like they just up and left everything.
Probably alien invasion.
I think so, probably too, right? One of the things that they talked about is like because they would live on the cliffs and then they would farm up top.
Yeah.
And so they thought maybe they leached the soil of all of its nutrients, and so it was no longer viable.
I could see that. That makes
and so
sense.
they just relocated. Instead of taking all their crap with them, they just left it and then made whatever they needed wherever they went.
Are there any myths in the American Southwest of giants in caves or something like that? Is that a made up story?
I've not ever heard. The only giant stuff I've heard is like the whole Paul Bunyan but that's all like I think Pacific Northwest stuff.
Hey, do you guys have Disney Plus?
We do.
Okay, well, have you watched Tall Tale yet?
I haven't watched Tall Tale. No.
Oh, it's so good, man. It's so good. Speaking of Paul Bunyan, played by Oliver Platt, you got all-star cast in that film.
I've heard of it. We haven't watched it. I can't even get my kids to watch Artemis Fowl. I was going to try to do a family movie, but it didn't work out.
Yeah.
This was a pretty cool one too. This was one we just stopped by because we were like within 100 miles of it. And this was Great Sand Dunes.
Okay, let's see. I'm trying to. There we go.
So yeah, it's really it's just so out of place. It's like a giant sandbox at the base of these two mountain ranges.
Interesting.
And basically, what it is that the wind blows over these two mountain ranges, and it shears off sand, and it just gets deposited, and the wind doesn't change much, and so the sand dunes stay there.
Oh, you made it back, man.
We made it back. We made it all the way through.
Do you ever miss working at U of O?
Well, yeah, of course, man. I miss the people there. I miss the students there. I don't know that I miss Clarksville a whole lot, but
yeah, for real.
I don't want to crap on Arkansas at all, but
cool.
You know what I really do miss? I miss the Ozarks.
Yeah.
I absolutely miss the Ozarks. I didn't think that I would, but I do. I mean, there was something about the Ozarks that's it's different than other places I've been. And so it's weird that that's not, because that always felt like home, and that now it's, cornfields. And there are a lot of cornfields here.
You could be, we could start describing you as corn-fed, right? That's a compliment.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
There's corn-fed wrestlers out your way.
They got some good wrestling here, man. I was thinking about doing some wrestling last year, but he opted for cross country instead.
I bet he would. I bet he would have a knack for it just because it's grappling. It's a grappling art, and so there would be some crossover. But I mean, in that region, I'm not sure about Nebraska, but I know that part of the United States. That's what they say. There's a bunch of corn-fed wrestlers up there.
Well, no, I mean it's a big sport here. Our college just added varsity women's wrestling.
Yeah.
So, awesome. And the state of Nebraska, I think, as this year will be sanctioning varsity women's wrestling. I was talking, and so this is an interesting grappling question. So I was talking to one of the wrestling coaches here about, transitioning, or maybe it was one of the wrestlers, jiu-jitsu to wrestling, and was talking about was when Owen was thinking about doing that. And he was saying that he thought it would be a difficult transition because with jiu-jitsu, you're supposed to work off your back, and in wrestling, you don't want to get on your back.
There is that, but like I just remarked on that the other day in MMA. So we had a college wrestler come in, and like he got taken down, but as soon as his back hit the floor, he like turned belly down, like it wasn't on bottom. And it's like that's something that a mentality that, and we talk about that in MMA a lot because jiu-jitsu guys like, well, okay, we'll pay on my back, that's fine, but the thing about it is, like, I think there's a guy I know of that he's actually a wrestling coach now, and he is the first person to ever wrestle D1 in college that never wrestled in high school. And he's a jiu-jitsu black belt under Pedro Sauer. And I want to say he earned that black belt at 18. His name's Ricky Lundell. I'm trying to have him on. I've been like, I'm just like, I just had this idea. I've been targeting like all of my jiu-jitsu heroes to come on the podcast. And damn it, man, they all say yes. And I'm like,
well, you know what, man, now is the time to do that because like nobody has anything to do. And there's still states where, their gyms are not open again,
Yeah, I got a guy from New York coming on next week, and he's, they're super hit. So,
yeah, I was listening to, what was I listening to? I think I was listening to the Luke Thomas show. They were listening to that on Sirius XM.
No, I don't. I need to get satellite radio, but man, I'm so invested in Audible right now. That's just really working for me.
He has a MMA show. He's an interesting guy to listen to. He's a vet, and then has been into jiu-jitsu and kind of is one of the talking heads and like the
what's his name?
Luke Thomas.
Luke Thomas. Maybe I should have him on the podcast.
He's got his own show he does every day. So he was talking to what's her name? The woman she just fought last weekend. Cervello, is that her name?
I'm not sure.
Somebody named,
I didn't watch that one. I watched a couple of the fights. I watched Garbrandt and
she was the headline. She was fighting some woman named I. Her last name was I.
Oh yeah.
But she was saying she made the transition from so what was it from she moved to AK American Kickboxing Association.
Yeah,
AKA, and the week after she transitioned teams, the gym shut down. And so her fight training for this was like she had a week with her new fight team and then didn't have another thing before this fight. So
yeah.
So I think that there are a lot of, anyway, long story short, you could probably get a lot of good guests.
Yeah, no, I've got some good ones lined up. I've contacted some people I'm waiting to hear back from. And I'll tell you something started to happen a little bit that's real cool is like the other day I had this guy named Stefan Kesting. And this guy's a jiu-jitsu guy from Canada, but he had both his kidneys removed, first of all. Secondly,
did just do dialysis then?
Well, his brother gave him one, so he had three kidneys. He had three kidneys for a while in the story. Watch the podcast; it's real good. This guy's like, I was joking around. I told somebody, I'm like, hey, this guy's like the most sixth famous jiu-jitsu guy that puts videos out. Okay, like he is kind of like my whole jiu-jitsu life. He has been like, you look for a video, he's gonna have one, right? So, but he goes on these wilderness trips, man. So he's like canoeing out in the middle of nowhere. And there's like polar, grizzly, and black bears and a forest fire. And I'm just like, and he's talking about like how if he was gonna, if he got to the forest fire so bad before he made the hard right turn in the river, he was gonna have to get under his canoe and like stay in the middle of the river. And I was just like, so back to that kidney transplant, bro. Like what?
He seems like he's living a full life, man.
Yeah. But,
and what's crazy is when when you're in the middle of doing stuff like that, I don't think it resonates with you how much danger you're in. You just are kind of focused on what comes next. And I mean, that's the way it was. It wasn't until like after the fact, after we all got back to our cars and we were realizing that there was, there were lightning strikes on both left and the right of us. And, we're in an area with flash flooding in the middle of the desert and there's a downpour. It doesn't really resonate with you until after it's over. I think when you're in it, you're just kind of, I don't know if it's like adrenaline kicks in or, training kicks in or whatever, probably both. And just kind of focus on the dangerous thing, getting through it. And then when you look back on it, it's, that's when I get my anxiety about it anyway. I'm usually good in the moment. It's like when they called me at, 4:00 in the morning when we were in Dublin and they were like, you got to get to the airport 2 hours early. And I couldn't get a hold of our charter bus. And so I had to go around, I had to wake up all the students. We had to take public transportation to get to the airport from our hotel. And it was €7 a piece. And all of our students had just spent all of their euro the day before. And so we had to gather coins and, go to an ATM machine, and we got there, man. I was actually up for about 42 straight hours.
Oh man, that'll wreck you too. Oh, how stressful was that?
It was very stressful. Because it was just, there was this, because half of Ireland is UK and half of it's not. So right, so it was, UK was not included in the travel ban, right? But we were in the Republic of Ireland, which is part of the EU, and so there was some question of whether or not Ireland was included or what part of Ireland was included, and I really didn't feel secure until our wheels touched down in Chicago, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I was going to say a second ago, what started to happen is people started watching my podcast and sharing it and watching, but then people I don't know.
That's
right?
good. That's what you want to happen.
Yeah, and then other so I'm getting lots of friend ads. Same thing's happening with the gym videos actually. I think I'm finally learning how to upload videos to YouTube in a way that they get views. I don't know. My podcast on YouTube actually doesn't, but on Facebook it kills it. That's I guess where I'm getting all the exposure. One of my episodes got 2,500 views, and that's
awesome, man.
Yeah. So I'm trying to get an episode 10,000. That's a big goal.
Are you gonna try to start monetizing?
I mean, I am, because you know what? If I don't make back all the money I spent on this thing, Cora's gonna divorce me, dude. I gotta get her pregnant so she can't leave me.
Well,
no, I was saying I've been joking. I made this joke yesterday. I'm like, we are trying to get pregnant.
Well, that's awesome. I hope it goes quickly for you, man.
Yeah, got any how quickly did it go for you, all 17?
So it was nuts, man. Every time I looked at my wife, she got pregnant. So, and what's crazy is I got that Weiss Kavorka, I guess. But what's crazy is that our doctors were like, it's probably going to be difficult for you guys to conceive. And so, we started thinking that it was going to take us a few months, 3 months after we got married, and month 4 it was, pregnancy test. And then we had babies for, every 20 months for 3 years, and then took a break. And then when we took a break, we were like, well, it's probably going to take a while. And then, no, didn't take a while. In fact, we found out about our youngest when we were in Yellowstone on one of those trips.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. That's why she was puking and not feeling well. So that's where our youngest daughter got her name. So we found out about it in Yellowstone, which is nicknamed Wonderland. And so we called our youngest one Alice.
Alice. Yeah. How is Alice? How old is she now?
She's 6, man.
Oh, wow.
Can you believe that?
That's wild. I feel like she was finally coming around to me when you guys left, because she was so shy for the.
Well, she's definitely come out of her shell now, man. She is. She's Miss Social, and she just recently got into Harry Potter this summer.
Oh,
and so
bro, I've got part of my Legos down here. Okay. Right. I have the castle. I have the castle. Okay.
That was an early attempt in the early part of quarantine to give us something to do.
You bought the castle?
No, around Easter we bought 3 Lego sets. We bought the Friends set.
Oh, I want that one. Yeah.
We bought there was a set that had 3 birds in it that you'd have to put the birds together. And then the big one was the Yoda.
Yeah.
So we put together the Yoda, and then we didn't. I mean, that was like $300, and that was too expensive to do every few weeks.
I'm in trouble for that too, dude. And I'm never going to make the money back on all the Star Wars action figures and micro machines I've been buying.
Nice.
Yeah.
You should. Yeah. I have my collection. My action figure collection is in my office, but I have this one. I got this one. So they have this line of Star Wars action figures that's modeled on samurai armor. Have you seen these?
No. Is this from the new trilogy?
No. So you see, this is Boba Fett, and it's as if he was a samurai armor.
That? Oh my God!
I got them on Amazon.
Oh, samurai!
But they're super cool. But they have this is the box here. So they're basically it's by a toy company that's out of, where is it from? It's Bandai, but they have Darth Vader, and they have like stormtroopers and Darth Maul, and they're all stylized as if they're samurai armor, which is like combining.
They got a Captain America and a Wolverine.
They do.
Oh my God, dude.
Because that was one of the other history classes, and it's that I really enjoyed, which was because it was completely different. But I took a history of China and history of Japan class. History of Japan's awesome. It's just like, it's so completely different from anything that we've ever learned, because it was on a completely different side, and it predates Western history by thousands of years. Yeah, Japan. The whole first chapter of my master thesis after my introduction was about Japanese martial arts, and then how they diffused out into the West and other parts of the world. Did you watch the Bruce Lee documentary on ESPN? No, I haven't. I have ESPN, the app, now because of the UFC, so I need to. Is it good? It's not bad. It's called Be Water. I would have. It focused a little bit on kind of his martial arts, but it was more about his kind of his social activism and him becoming the symbol that he did, and then his struggles in Hollywood to get past, the racism that clearly continues to exist. It was all right. I've seen better ones, but it wasn't bad. Yeah. The one about the Jordan documentary is the one that I recently watched. I haven't seen that one yet either. Is it really good? Yes. You're 10 years younger than me. So were you into the Bulls and Jordan? Yeah, I was just a little kid, but I remember when they won their last championship, how big of a deal it was. And then I want to say that like all of them went on like Oprah or something and like told the story, and they're like making fun of Steve Kerr, who was like the only white guy on the team, if I'm not mistaken. Well, that's not entirely true. There was a few more. He's the only white guy I remember. Yeah. Right? He comes off really well in the documentary. He's it's really good. You should check it out. If anything, it's a good 10-hour. The Last Dance, that's what it's called. Last Dance, yeah. So you can watch it on the ESPN app too. So yeah. So, dude, let's wrap it up with this, man. What and maybe we can do another one of these episodes down the road, and you can commentate on your Ireland. I'll send you the link for it. It'll be I've got it in a Google Doc. Yeah. But I'll send you the link so you can look at it. It's about 20 minutes long, but it's again just kind of what we did and what we saw and that sort of thing. And I'm planning on I rented an RV. So at the beginning of August, I think we're going to drive the RV out someplace, and I think we're going to maybe try to do like a family documentary. Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. RV, and I figured that was the best way, that we didn't have to, it's got a shower and a bathroom and a kitchen, so we don't have to stop for food. We don't have to stop to go to the bathroom. We don't have to get a hotel. It's kind of self-sustained. And it wasn't as expensive as I thought it was. So anyway, you were wrapping it up. What's our education going to be like going forward, man? Like, there's a lot of uncertainty. Everybody, like we talked about, school for your kids. I know that there's been like, for you, it's been different, but I mean, just overall as an industry, like we're two professors. You've been in the game way longer than me. I don't know what the hell is going on. I don't know, man. At the beginning of this, I would have thought this was going to be the death of the kind of in-person liberal arts education. But as I'm reading more about this, and as they're talking to people, I think this is things are going to change, right? I think that there's a higher ed bubble that's bursting as colleges are closing, because of financial constraints, and so I think that what I'm hoping for is kind of a reevaluation of cost of college, right? Because online schools if it's the online experience, there are schools that have been doing that for a long time, and they're really good at it. And so traditional brick and mortar schools can't compete with that, and they shouldn't try to, right? Yeah. I think that what we figured out, what we're hearing from our students is that they want on campus experiences, right? But they also, I don't think that they want to go back. I don't think that they're going to be willing to pay what they were willing to pay at one point in time, you know?
Mhm.
So I think, honestly, I think that next year is going to look like it's going to be, I think it's going to be a mixed method. I think that the schools that are able to be flexible and that can kind of pivot pretty quickly are schools that are going to do well. So if we have to go back into lockdown, schools that can kind of seamlessly transition from in-class delivery or have some sort of partial in-class, partial online are going to be those that, you know, that's some of the things that we're looking at. But I think that we're going to see the guard of faculty and administrators who are anti-technology. That's obsolete.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you know, all I need is a chalkboard. I think that's gone.
Yeah. Well, and two, I've picked up on that. Like I'm noticing, so for example, one of my old professors, he was the guy that wrote the Arkansas history textbook, one of them, but he retired. He retired last year, but then he was like, man, I love teaching. You know what? Hendrix is like the highest pay. I don't know. I'm sure he didn't need the money, but like he's teaching over at Hendrix, which I know pays $4,000 per class they teach to like 2,000 everywhere else. But he's like, oh, I'm teaching Civil War, and then like halfway through, they're like, we're gonna need you to go online with that, and he's just, no, and not like he's about to retire. It's his last year. Like, no, he already retired.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, you know, we had a couple things at this school at Hastings that were going for us. Number one, we had just rolled out an iPad initiative, so every student had an iPad.
That's great.
Which was huge. The second thing is that we had block scheduling, and so we have all of our classes are in 2 and 7 week sessions, right? And so what ended up happening was when we had to go online, we didn't have to shift in the middle of the semester. We basically came back from spring break, and instead of being in class, we were online. And now all of our students, as long as they had an internet connection, had a way to access the class, right? And then for me, I had gone to paperless classes like 4 years ago. And so everything was on a course management system. Whether, you know, the only thing that I wasn't doing there was delivery. And so I just had to figure out a delivery method. And so I used an asynchronous delivery method where I basically spoke over my slides and then uploaded them in like 15 and 20 minute intervals. Because if I'm trying to do an hour or an hour and a half straight, that wasn't working. So I just did audio recordings and you know, I could do that in PowerPoint easily.
Yeah.
And used a lot of links, and then had deadlines set up, and students, I would put everything on a Monday. Everything would be due on a Wednesday or a Friday. All the feedback was online because I was already doing it that way. They submitted everything online. And then I just did the delivery that way and recorded the lectures, had everything uploaded on Monday. They had to have it done by 6 p.m. on Friday. And it seemed to work out really well. My course evaluations were pretty good. I was surprised. You know, the only thing that I wasn't really able to replicate was like in-class discussion.
Yeah, they're trying to get me to do this thing called Flipgrid.
Yeah, so it's like discussion boards, and I didn't have a lot of success with discussion boards. It's like, okay, let me pose a question. Let's just type on it. It's good to do that, but the biggest problem with that is that you have to do that at set times. And, you know, I had students that because of COVID were, you know, they got full-time jobs. And so they were literally, you know, they were working all day. And so when do you do that? And then also there were instances where, you know, students, I just didn't want students to have to post because I put you know, you have to make 5 posts to get an A or whatever, you know, that doesn't kind of replicate that. So I think that there's some innovation that can be done.
You guys use Blackboard?
No, we use Canvas.
Okay.
Canvas is really nice. I'm really happy with Canvas. We used Moodle at my other school. Did not like Moodle at all. I've used Blackboard when I taught a little bit of tech. At Tech Ozark, we used Blackboard, but Yeah, I mean, we had kind of integrated our course management system. The biggest problem with the course management system was the files, but we're also a Google Classroom or Google College. And so I just basically had to place a link on our course management system and then have the lectures themselves stored on Google Drives. Right.
Oh, that's nice. We have, what is the Microsoft OneDrive? Microsoft OneDrive. But man, cloud storage, that it does make my go back and forth between here and the college a lot easier. We use Blackboard. I really like it. And like what I'm going to do on my PowerPoints, I record like a lecture like this. Basically, I got like my lecture notes. It's pretty detailed. But then I have like a PowerPoint that I do in like maybe a 10 or 15 minute version of that.
Yeah.
Right. I'm like it's just super brief. I'm like, hey, remember how we talked about all this stuff? Like, here's this from the picture from the book, well, whatever it is. And I just go through, and it's mostly key terms, and I don't have my lecture notes in front of me. I've already done the lecture and split the audio off and had the video and put it on YouTube. And so that's how I've been doing it. But
I don't. Were you teaching your classes synchronously, where you had times that everybody had to tune in at the same time?
I was not, but they're making a big push for that, which I kind of feel like I like that option for face-to-face classes, and I was thinking about starting to integrate it. But now, like what they're going to do at our school, at least what they're saying they're going to do, is which they change with have changed several times, and they always like we're supposed to be doing what U of A does with like most of our policies, and then U of A releases their plan super early, and then like we have this other plan, and then we end up going with U of A's plan.
Yeah,
that's what like just redundantly has happened over and over. But on starting back, they're wanting us to do the synchronous. So like basically students only have to come to class so they feel comfortable coming to class.
Yeah.
But I got to be there. I don't know.
Yeah, they're making us, so we're going to be on campus, but they want us to have like hybrid courses that if someone gets sick or I get sick, I can still deliver from home. Students can deliver, or the other kind of tinkering with how many we can have in a classroom. How does that work with masks, that whole thing. So I don't know. It'll be really interesting to see how it all plays out.
What do you guys like? This is something that's come up. Like tech is pretty divided on starting back and stuff, apparently. So if one of your students or you come into contact with a faculty member or a student that gets COVID-19, you've got to go into 14-day quarantine. So how does that work? Like students are going to get it. Like
no, yeah. So they're going to have to. I mean, they're going to have to be tracking it, like really tracking it, and then, making. That's why they want us to use create class models that can be delivered in a variety of different ways, so that we can be flexible depending on what happens, right? Yeah. So if I have to go into quarantine, I can still continue to teach my class using the technology that I have right now.
Yeah.
Right, and then students can use their iPads the same way. If we have to go into out of classroom scenario, then I need to plan a class that can do that. For me, it's not that difficult because I was doing everything paperless anyway.
Yeah, I did that turnaround on like a 2-day notice. They're like, yeah. I joke about it. They're like, hey, Brian, we need you to go home and start filming videos. I was like, all right, I'm set up for this. No problem at all. Don't bother me. Like they didn't hear from me. So they were like calling me like, hey, what are you doing over there? And I'm like, I'm crushing it. Like, let me tell you about everything I'm doing. I'm a video production studio right now. I'm thinking about starting my own news show. Like I was just like, telling. She's like, all right, you got it. Well, can you make a video for this award ceremony? Because we had to do all these digital awards and stuff too.
Yeah. But yeah, it's, I mean, there's just no reason why we can't be able to be like that with what we have. I mean, you can do that with your phone. I'm on everything that I have, everything that I've put out in the documentaries and the film, it's all been using basically iMovie.
Are you zooming on your iPhone or using a computer?
I'm on my iPad.
Oh, same thing. Yeah. I mean, that's
I mean,
what with the gym, we just zoomed with the iPad every
yeah,
time. I've done it with my
I mean,
phone once.
the audio is decent, and I can hear you just fine. I didn't want to use my Bluetooth speakers, but
Man, I've these for the podcast. A lot of my guests wear their
yeah.
their Bluetooth headphones, and I've done it one time, and I was super impressed with the audio. Yeah, good time.
Yeah, so I think that, you know, I think that we're in a good spot because of just serendipitously having that stuff. I mean, we'd have been screwed if all of our students, and we still had problems. And the reason why they wanted us to do asynchronous is because we still have a lot of rural kids that don't have like Wi-Fi.
That's an issue for us too, being a community college, particularly. Man, we get draw for a lot from like Clinton, Overcup, and places like that. So, yeah.
I think the schools that can be flexible and can kind of change on the fly are going to be the ones that can handle whatever's going to happen in the fall. We're planning on going through like just a regular schedule, but again, it's not like we have a semester's worth of classes. We're doing, you know, we have a 2-week, and then we have a 7-week, and then we have a fall break, and then we have another 7-week. And so if it turned out we couldn't, you know, we got to that 7-week and things were blowing up again, you know, they could just push the other 7-week class, or we could just go right to online pretty easily and not disrupt stuff too badly. And so that was just, you know, that's just one of the benefits of having a block system in it.
Are you guys going back after Thanksgiving or no?
Yeah, well, that's the plan for right now, but we'll come back after Thanksgiving and have that next 7-week session.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And so we can change on the fly.
Yeah. See, that's what something in Arkansas, a lot of the schools are doing. I think U of A and Tech both are not coming back after Thanksgiving break. So
yeah, it's what some of the other schools in our state are doing that too, but they don't have the same scheduling either. So
yeah, that's interesting. When you like did that math, I was like, that's 7 weeks after Thanksgiving. That's weird.
And the 7-week classes count for 4 credit hours.
Man, that's interesting too.
So we're meeting with our classes every day of the week for an hour and a half.
Wow. Is that how you guys did it before this?
Yeah, they started that. That was part of the rollout of the new stuff that they were doing. That started last year. And so I was there for the first. And so that gave me a really good opportunity to try some new things that I'd never tried before and do some stuff. Like one of the biggest things that I've completely abandoned is the whole idea of having like a rote memorization test.
What do you do? Essays?
So take-home exams, essays, take-home exams for upper-level stuff, a lot of presentation stuff. And then in my lower-level classes, basically what I've done is a weekly timed quiz. And it's done online, and it's open book. Because honestly, and I've shifted this, I don't think in this day and age it's necessary to memorize anymore.
I come down on that side too, man. And like, that's kind of why I was smiling, is because I got to do a lot of the same stuff, honestly. And it's like super frowned upon that, you know, but it's like, honestly,
that's the old school mentality, right? You got to memorize it. Like these kids are not memorizing it forever. They're memorizing it enough to do the exam. And then it goes away. I mean, honestly, what we should be teaching our students how to do is how to quickly find the right information and accurate information. That's really what we should be training our students, because that's gonna better serve them in the real world, whatever that looks like, than, you know, I'm gonna get this textbook and I'm gonna memorize something the night before and I'm gonna get a B+ on the test. Like, we should be giving them the tools that they're going to be having when they're in the workplace to find the information, but also empowering them with the ability to find the correct information, and information that is, you know, cited, and information that is valid, rather than having them memorize facts. That's where I'm at with it right now.
Yeah, no, that's man, the way I like, and it kind of like when I talk to some of the other professors who've been there, they're like, because they don't use Blackboard at all. Like, we're not required to use it for anything other than the grade book and attendance. But I'll be like, pretty much doing my class exactly the same as I do. I'm making an online class right now. But there are like only like 2 or 3 differences. And like, the key difference is like, hey, I lecture in this room for this class. That same lecture's over here from this video from my house over here, though. right? It's the same. It's the exact same. And like how I have the assignments set up, how I do the due dates, everything's like the same. So like now that I'm building this online class, I literally just had to copy all my units over to the normal class, the online class. Meanwhile, a ton of people aren't even using, organizing their course like that. And I already had all my tests, all the discussion board assignments, writing assignments, everything. But man, that's where I've been going is like, I've kind of, that's why I asked if you're doing an essay test. I want to move away from that 50 multiple choice question model.
Yeah. Because what are you measuring?
Yeah.
Right. You're measuring their ability to look at a study guide. And I mean, they're not learning the information. I mean, the stuff that you and I have memorized, we have memorized because we've spent, however much time interacting with it constantly. Right.
Yeah.
And a student takes one class. That's not going to happen in a 7-week class. It's not going to happen in a, 18-week class. It's just not going to. Right. I mean, so I think that we should be teaching different skills.
Yeah.
I think that's where I'm at with
like critical thinking. Let's teach some of that. I hear we're supposed to.
But I mean, in this day and age when there's so much information available, like, is it more important to be able to find the valid and the I hesitate to say correct information, but I mean, there's like a lot of crap out there that's not good information, right?
Well, like that made a joke earlier about like that Irish slaves myth. That's something that's been going around that I've recently made a post commenting on. But I mean, there is a lot of propaganda out there like that is, and it's like what's crazy is that Irish slave myth. Like I started reporting it when I would see it come up because a bunch of racist leaning people were sharing it, but it's just propaganda. There's actually no truth to this particular story that was going around. But that I started looking, and that had been back on Facebook since like 2015, 2016. People I was friends with were sharing it.
Well, it's the double-edged sword of the internet, right? It's that everybody has access to putting things on there, but then just because it's on there doesn't mean that all that information is equally valid.
Yeah. Well, and then too, some people don't know. They have no idea how to tell the difference. They don't even look at the date of the article. They have no checklist of things to go through.
Well, I mean, you look at something like the now discredited piece of research that was put out, and this was something that was published in a journal that linked vaccinations to autism. Right. So that information was out there. If you go to the journal where that's published, it has on every page, it's a watermark that says that it's been disproven. Like it's recanted, like it's a retraction, right? The guy has admitted he falsified his information. He falsified his data. But it's out there. You can access it.
Jesse, no, you're wrong. Okay. The vaccinations, I've heard that they're bad. Okay. They cause autism. All right.
But this is also where like the whole climate denial thing comes from too. Like, well, there's all these studies that I found on the internet, but so what we should be, to get back around what we were talking about, I think that what we should be doing with students is helping them figure out, okay, what's good information? How do I find that quickly? And then how do I use that to answer the questions that are on the test?
Yeah.
And so that's really where I'm at with it right now. I don't do any like rote memorization stuff anymore at all. I think that's a dinosaur.
Yeah. I saw this meme recently and it was like what you thought college was going to be like. And it was like all of this, like super, like they made my syllabus for me. Basically it's like, you 60% this, 30% that. And it's like, what it's actually like. Your teacher's Jesse, and he has a non-comprehensive final exam. The test is take home. Like, like it's like that. But that is, I think, man, I just like, I talk to people like you, and I have my pet professors, and I'm always trying to innovate and bring technology into it. Like, because I think that, like you're doing it, but I think this is a generation of people that are active in education that are going to do it. And particularly with COVID-19, we're going to make that digital push. Like you were saying,
that's where it is. I think that this is hastening that. And I think for good reason. Are we still recording?
Yeah. We are, but we can. We
So
can
pause
wrap
that.
it up anytime.
Pause that and let me tell you some stuff.
Okay.